Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Mark Shinesk. I'm Senior Application Engineer with Seiler Design Solutions, and welcome to our webinar on using the Autodesk Connector for ArcGIS Online in Civil 3D 2020.1. And we got a few little things here. Now, if you've been paying attention to our blog, I've been kind of posting some workflows on our blog. That's basically what I'm going to be showing today in the webinar, all in one compressed session. So at any time you can go ahead and visit our blog. I'll give a link to that at the end of the webinar, and you can see recordings of that as well. Just to remind everybody that this webinar will also be recorded, and you will receive an email at the end of the session with a little questionnaire. You can respond back, tell us how you like the webinar, and also give us requests for future webinars you would like us to do for you on a subject that's near and dear to your heart. We'll be happy to consider that, putting that in consideration. But there'll also be a link to the recording in that follow-up email to this. So I'm going to start things off here a little bit. Just want a few questions here, just two questions I'd like to ask. A couple poll questions. Since we're using the ArcGIS Online, I'm going to launch this little poll here really quick. How many of you out there are using GIS data in your design workflows? We'll just go ahead and answer yes or no. We'll give it a couple seconds here. And almost everybody's voted. Won't keep you going too long here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. And you can see by the results here that everybody's using GIS data. That's awesome, and I like to see that. There's so much good information available out to the public or that's been curated by your organization or another organization that you have access to. That's really good for engineering design. So I'll go ahead and hide that one. One more real quick one here. Which version of Civil 3D is everybody currently using? I always like to see this because we show some of these tools. A lot of these tools are developed for the latest versions of Civil 3D, but this helps us understand not everybody's using, or maybe not everybody's using Civil 3D at all. Some people are just interested in some of the other products here. Okay, so we got some results back. Go ahead and close that poll. Share that around. So everybody's at least up on the 2018, 2019, and that's good. And everything I'm going to show you here is come out for Civil 3D 2020.1 and Infraworks 2020 and Map 3D 2020. But if you're thinking of using these tools, understand that Civil 3D 2020, 2019, and 2018 are all cross-compatible. So like the old days of 13 through 16, if somebody wants to explore these tools in 2020 and they're still working on projects in 2019 or 2018, you can really open those projects up. You can access your design in 2020 and still be able to open these back up in 2019, 2018. So thank you for that, filling out those polls here really quick. I don't have very much in the line of PowerPoints. I'm not really a PowerPoint Online guy here, but we'll discuss a couple things. So what we're going to talk about is ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS Online is an Esri cloud-based GIS data portal. If you're familiar with items like BIM 360 docs and other online portals, it works very similar to that in its basic functionality. But is Esri oriented. It connects to ArcGIS Desktop and ArcGIS Pro. You can add, modify, organize GIS data in this cloud sources. You can curate it to the content that you have you could add users, add permissions. You can organize groups of people. You can make data public. There's something called the Esri Living Atlas. We'll be showing that kind of being able to grab that data from the Living Living Atlas, publicly available data, or you can lock things down and only invite one or two people to share this data. You can give people read-write access to modify their data. You can create maps with layered data and stylize them out. You can see a little picture there where I have some parcel data that's been stylized by zone. We can import those into Map 3D as FDL objects. We can bring those into Civil 3D as design objects. So the Map 3D, I'm going to go back a slide there. I kind of jumped ahead. So we can bring that, and I'll show you that. We can bring this data in. So once that data is published in ArcGIS Online, we can bring that data into Map 3D and create map books and create FDO connections to that. But it is a one-way trip. I can only bring that data in. We cannot modify it. I can't do things like if I connect it to a shapefile or a file geodatabase in Map 3D, I can go ahead and collect that data and modify it right back to that file geodatabase. I cannot do that with the Esri ArcGIS Online data, but I can import it in as FDO data. But in Civil 3D, I can bring that data in now as civil objects. So if I have parcel data or centerline road alignment data or zoning maps or building data, instead of trying to recreate that from tracing over photos or something like that, I can connect to that ArcGIS data online, download it, and add it to my Civil 3D design project as centerline alignments or parcels or surfaces or pipe networks or other civil objects. And then we can write those back. So when we do our final design, if I need to publish GIS data as builds, we can publish that Civil 3D data back to ArcGIS Online as data that can be as a file geodatabase up on ArcGIS Online, or even actually to a local file geodatabase if I need to. Okay. But I can't modify existing data as well with this tool. Okay, I can only make a new layer or a new file data store, and then somebody up, with ArcMap can merge the two together or do modifications. Okay. Oops, I'm going to skip that one. And as we know, Civil 3D is based on AutoCAD Map 3D, and so I'm gonna. That's basically all I have for the PowerPoints. I'm not going to get too far into it here. Let's go into the data itself. So I'm going to log into my ArcGIS Online. I'm going to open up a file browser here. Maybe not. It depends if it lets me do that. I changed my screen resolution. There we go. So I have my I'll take you into the world of what ArcGIS Online looks like. So here's my ArcGIS Online. This is Seiler Design Solutions. I'm going to skip right over to the content. So we have been publishing content up here for various workflows. As you see, I've been able to organize my data. So I have all my data organized out in folders. So I can go to all my content. You can see these are all the different file types available. So I can host feature layers, shape files, file geodatabase. Those are the different kind of layer data that I can publish out there. And then I can organize it. So I have a set of subfolders. So all my content, I have 30 items in there. I've subdivided it between two folders. The city of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, I have in one folder. It kind of pulls that down, and then the remainder of it I have in another folder. I can also filter. So I have some filter data that I can go by tag data. So my connector data in here, I have stuff organized. Here's parcels and block data for St. Louis. Here's building data in St. Louis. Here's zoning and land use. Here's some data down in the Dallas area. I have some pipe network data down in Dallas that I can also bring in. Okay, so you can add new filters, you can edit these, configure categories, you can configure folders, you can favorite objects, not only things that you make, but objects that are available on the Living Atlas. So, I have some land use, publicly published data from the Wisconsin DNR. I have Wisconsin watersheds. I have hydro water bodies, land use maps. These are all things that government agencies have decided to publish on the Living atlas that I'm able to access into my drawings or my models. I can also look in groups. I can create different groups. So I have an AutoCAD desktop connector demo data group with some members that I've invited, and only they have access to things that I throw in there. And then, of course, we have the Living Atlas, which is publicly published data. There are hundreds and thousands of different data sets, and some of them are worldwide. You're going to have to kind of filter through, and I'll show you how to do that within the program itself when you're adding this data to your models. But it's pretty straightforward. You go through here and you can browse through and look at maps, and you can view the data online. So if I wanted to see, World Traffic Service or USA Topo Maps, I can actually click on this and maybe go into the map viewer. So if I wanted to preview this before I bring it to my data, you can go into ArcGIS Online and you can browse into where you need to, and the data will be available to you. If you do not have a paid subscription to ArcGIS Online, you're not going to be able to publish data, but the Living Atlas data will be available to you. I have a question here. Can you connect to a local SDE database instead of shapefiles or ArcGIS Online? Not to use the connector. So that's a good question. Not to use the ArcGIS Online connector. In Map 3D, as far as an FDO connection, one of the connections you can use here is to connect to ArcSDE. Absolutely. Actually, I think this is gone as a version 10.3 or 10.2. You're now going to be connecting directly to the SQL or the Oracle database instead of the ArcSDE. But not to use not what I'm going to show you in this webinar. You cannot connect to the local ArcSDE. You could bring that into like ArcGIS Online and then publish a subset of that to the ArcGIS Online to be able to use these tools. Okay, so let me show you a couple demos here. Since I have Map 3D open, let's start with that. We're going to go ahead and make a connection. So I have a blank Map 3D. I'm just going to connect to the ArcGIS data connector. But with like everything else, we have to, Civil 3D, we have to define our coordinate zone. Since I'm going to be working here in St. Louis, I'm going to connect some data. I'm going to assign my coordinate system. In this case, I'm just going to leave it at WGS 84. So I'll set my coordinate zone. Let's say I'm going to make a map book of this. I may assign this LL, or I could use a state plane or something like that, a planar projection or UTM or whatever I need to. Okay, sorry, I got another ask from Austin. No problem. That's fine. I'm glad you have that. It'll be on record now. You can show on the recording. Okay, back to this here. We're going to go ahead and attach to that. So this is Map 3D 2020. Under the Insert, actually it's under the Home tab now. You'll see the Autodesk Connector for ArcGIS. Okay, so I'm going to connect to that, and it's going to ask me to log in or log into my information. Now I'm already logged in with my user account here, so you can see that this is the type of map interface you have here. And I'm going to zoom down here to the St. Louis area because that's where I'm going to bring in some data. And I'm going to draw a rectangle. So like this is the data area that I want to bring data in. And you can see as I draw this area on the left side in the content end, it's gone through and it's reading my account and it's saying, okay, in my content. So back here, when I go back, let me go back to home to my content. So in my content, I have all these items published. These are listed out by coordinate. Back here in Map 3D, it's going to read that and say, okay, this is all the stuff you have here. So I'm going to bring in the parcel area. So I'm going to click on parcel area here. And it's going to read that data and it says, oh, look, and it's giving me a little preview. And this is the parcel data you can bring in your Map 3D project. Do I want to bring that in? Sure. We'll go ahead and add that to my design. So now it's going to go ahead and read that data online, reading the feature class, reading everything in, and it's going to put it in as a map layer in my Map 3D project. So it takes a couple minutes here, but then you can see it's added that data directly into my map. If I click on one of those parcels, I can go here to get some information on it. I'm in the industry. I don't need the industry. I'm not in the industry map. So here's my parcel data. I can expand on it. I can open up the data table. So you can see all the data table associated with these objects. If I can select on a particular parcel, then I can go through and read all that parcel data. I'm not going to go through making a map book or anything like that in here, but you can see that data can come in. If I need to add more data, I'll just go back to my Home tab, choose my Autodesk Connector, go through, find another feature layer that I want to bring in for that area. Again, I'll come down here to St. Louis. I'll draw another rectangle around where I want here, and maybe I'll bring in MetroLink stops. Okay, so I'll bring in my MetroLink points, add that. So I can continue adding this until I'm putting together the map data that I want. You can see the MetroLink stops. I have the lines and everything like that as well. The downside of this, unlike other connections, I cannot edit this data. So if I wanted to edit, here's the parcel that the St. Louis Arch is on. This is you notice there's no feature editing. I can't check this data out. I can't modify this, where this was an FDO connection to, let's say, an ArcSDE server or a file geodatabase. I can modify the data table, or I can modify the geometry and write that back to that data store. You cannot do that currently in the Map 3D version of the ArcGIS Online. Okay, so that's basic functionality in Map 3D. We are going to go ahead now and switch over to Civil 3D. So now I got a couple drawings here in Civil 3D, but I'm going to open up a blank drawing in Civil 3D. So I'm going to start a brand new drawing here. This is a blank Civil 3D drawing using the default. I'm using the default NCS National CAD Standards layer tables and symbols. What I'm going to do here is first thing, like any other project, I'm going to go down and oops, not my options, Mark. You hit too fast there. Drawing utilities and go to my drawing settings, and I'm going to change my coordinate zone. This time I'm going to use a projection. I know the code for Missouri 83, NAD 83 Eastern Zone US foot is MO 83 EF. You can see now I'm at Missouri State Plains East Zone. So in Civil 3D, we're going to go ahead and set our coordinate system here. I'll hit apply and OK. Right, and now under Civil 3D 2020.1, so it's the 0.1 update. If you come to the Insert tab, you can see I have the connector for ArcGIS as well as my data source manager. So just like I did in Map 3D, I can connect to that Autodesk connector for ArcGIS, and it's going to bring up a similar map that I saw before. So this is that same map, shows me logged in. I can choose my area. Again, I'll choose St. Louis area. It's going to go through and read all the stuff under the public. Now, at this time, I'm able to see public data or my content or my groups. Okay, so I'm going to just go to my content. So let's say I want to bring that parcel data. So we saw that parcel data in Map 3D. I'm going to go ahead and click on that parcel data here. And this time when I bring that in, I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, I want to bring this in as parcels. So it knows there's closed areas. I can bring in the corners and the vertices as Kogo points, or I can bring those in as feature lines. In this case, these are parcels, so I'm going to bring them right in as Civil 3D parcels. And I'll go ahead and say add this to my design project. Now this is going to take a little bit longer, not too long. I've kind of curated and cut this down a little bit. You do want to watch out how much data you're bringing in. I have one data set that's all the streets and roads and highway systems for the entire state of Missouri. I could bring that into my map, but it's going to take a long time to cull through all that information to bring it in. So you might want to break it up into a little subset. of the area that's relevant to your project. So if you have a GIS professional that can break that data out that's project related, that would help a little bit. It's not saying you couldn't use everything, but it just makes life a little bit easier. So it's gone through now, it's creating the parcels. Don't forget, when you're creating and adding parcel data, it's got to make a site for that parcel data to go on. But there you can see we're done. As I zoom in, you can see on my prospector, if I expand on sites, you can see it's made a site that has the same name as the data store that I brought in. If I expand on that and expand on parcels, you can see there's all my parcels in Civil 3D in the prospector. Okay, so now I can right click, I can zoom to that parcel. So there's parcel 3 right there, and I click on that, and it is a Civil 3D parcel. And I can now go through and add any of the information I wanted to. So if I wanted to annotate that parcel, and I'll add parcel single segment labels, and I'll say add, and I can start going through and adding my bearings and distances or whatever I needed to whatever I'm going to do for annotating this. So the same thing holds true for any other data. Let me bring in something else here. I'll go ahead back to my connector one more time and make it really quick here. Inserts connector for ArcGIS. Let's bring in some alignment data. So I'll go back to my content, and here's my street center lines. Oh yeah. Oh, actually, I gotta make sure I'm not bringing in the entire one here, because I got a couple of, because I do have that entire one, but I believe, yeah, this is the partial one. So then I can get a preview. I can click the little eyeball here. Here's a preview of all the line work it's going to bring in. This time I could bring those as feature lines, pipes, cogos, or alignments. I'm going to bring those in as alignment data. So you're kind of getting the gist of what's happening here. So now it's going to read that in as bringing it in as alignment data. That went a little faster as the parcel. It didn't have as much work to do, but there's my alignment data. And if I look on my property window, so any of these objects I bring in, if I have my properties window open, it treats it as a Civil 3D object. But if I come down here to extended data, there's all the attribute information that was on that in that data set, in that file geodatabase that I had this in. So not only are you getting the data that comes in for Civil 3D design, but any kind of attribute information that's available will be able to read in there. Okay, another question here. Let's say you have design data in ArcGIS Online. Can you edit it, or is it just for viewing? That's a good question too. I'll show you that. Here in Civil 3D, once I bring it in as object data, it gets treated just like any other civil object. I can modify, PIs on this. I can grab a parcel line and modify the parcel, change the area, do all that stuff that I want to normally do. Change the label, change it from a property style to an open space style, whatever I need to do. Name area, so there's all my information. So as you can see, as I'm changing this parcel data, it's updating, everything's done. I cannot write this back to that data store that I just got it from. I can look at my data source manager and see where all my data came from, okay, when it was last updated, when it was imported, and all that. But the save back button, changes allowed to ArcGIS be overwritten when you save back. So I guess I can save it back. Let me see if I can do that. That's a good question. Maybe I can do it from here. I didn't think I was able to do that. Let me stretch this one way out here and see what I can do. This must be new content. Let's go ahead and see if we can save that alignment back. Street lines. Let's go ahead and save back. Continue. Now I'm going to go back to my ArcGIS Online. I'm going to come to my connector data. Where's my streets? I think it's under all, actually. Clear. Connector data set, street part. Let's look at that. I might have to refresh this, but let's go ahead and take a look at that feature layer on the map and whether it edited it back or not. I know that once it's in ArcGIS Online, you can edit it in here for sure. All right. Yeah, so that line that I edited, it did not write it back. You can see I could change the background map here. Instead of that base map, I'll choose this is just the imagery base map. It did not edit that back, but I can in ArcGIS Online if you set it up for that data set. If I go back to that data set here, I can go here to settings and come down here and enable editing. So maybe because I didn't have enable editing turned on. So I can save that. So now I should be able to edit that data. Let me go back to the map on that. Go back to my map. So let's go back to overview. Let's go back to visualization. Now I should be able to edit that data in here. Oh, I never changed my base map back. There we go. Let's come down here. Let's grab. Yeah. So now I can edit that and I can change. You know, I can change data table items on here. I can change attribute information. I should be able to change the geometry on it as well. That should be, you should be able to do that here on the map view, provided you give permissions to make those edits. All right. But as far as the Civil 3D goes, I don't think the write back, let's see if I can write back now, save back, continue. Now it's taking a little longer, so I think I had to set those editing permissions. We'll take a look at that map when I get back to it and see if that's done. So that data source manager, as long as you have that set up, I think you can write back. You can also export out. So if you didn't want to take the chance of modifying that data, you can go ahead and create a new layer in ArcGIS Online and edit it that way as well. So let's give this a couple more minutes. Did that answer your question, Austin? So I'm going to type some answers. I'll type some answers here before I close things out, just so it's on the record. For ArcGIS Online. Okay. And yes, you can. Both on ArcGIS Online and within Civil 3D and Infraworks. There. I never get a chance to type those in. Hey, it looks like it's done. Let's go back to ArcGIS Online here and let's refresh this back. I'm going to go back to my home, content, and finish. Yeah, cool. So I extended that center line. So we should, theoretically, oh, look at that. It's updated. It's got today's modified date. I'll see, I learned something along with y'all. That's great. Let's go back to the map. Open up in Map Viewer in ArcGIS Online. Yep, there it is. Look at that. So yes, perfect. And I see that's new. I didn't think we could do that before. Do got to figure out how to set that base map. So I'm kind of an ArcGIS noob, but yeah, that's cool. Or likewise in Civil 3D, sorry, I could come back here into the output and I can publish this to ArcGIS. Okay, so that's another thing I could do. So I'm going to go ahead and connect. And now it's going to ask me from my drawing what I want to publish out. I can clear everything down, and maybe I do want to. Actually, let's do the next drawing, and I'll come back and show you this in another way. So I got another drawing here. I'm going to show you how you could connect to ArcGIS Online to create pipe networks. Well, a lot of utilities, a lot of municipalities, they'll keep these pipe networks and they'll keep GIS databases of their pipe network data. So we're going to go ahead and use the same tool. I'm going to go ahead and go to my Insert tab, connect to the Autodesk Connector for ArcGIS Online. I'm going to go to my content. This is going to be down here in Dallas. So I got some data sets down here in Dallas. I know exactly where I'm going, sort of, kind of. It's been a while since I've been on this data set. I think it is down here. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm just going to draw a big thing down here. So I know it's in this area. My group public. Well, maybe it's not. You know, it's kind of funny when you zoom in on this stuff 100 times a day, you know exactly where it's at until you get online. Let's redo this. You know what I end up doing? I end up going like this. Sometimes when this happens and you forget where you're at, I'm gonna go back to Civil 3D. I'm gonna close this icon here. Come back to my pipe network, and sometimes when you're in a rush, you forget what you're doing here. So we're gonna go ahead and go to home. Where is it? I can't find it. Geolocation. There we go. Turn on your roadmap. That would help me out a little bit. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, you know, I've done this so many times now. Okay, yeah, I was in the right area. See, it's in that southwest corner of Dallas. So let's come back up here and let's go ahead to our home insert. Autodesk Connector. There we go. Did I have it right this time? Man, I am just batting oh, I'm in St. Louis. I don't know why it keeps on dropping back to that. Unless I have to go ahead and log out and log back in again. There we go. There we go. There we go. See, I knew I'd find it. Let's see what we got in that area. My content. Yeah. So I got some sanitary sewer here I'm going to bring in. So I have a data set of sanitary sewer that consists of some pipes and some structures. So the pipe layer. So these are two layers I have in that one geodatabase. The pipes I'm going to bring in as a gravity pipe object, and the structures I'm going to bring as gravity structures. And when I go ahead and add those to my design, when you're bringing pipe networks in, you're going to have a schema mapping that you're going to have to do. So here I have the civil properties. So all civil objects like pipes, alignments, and cocoa points, they have their own properties that are hard-coded into the program here. So like these are the civil properties for the structures. Structure shape, structure diameter, inner wall. And what I've got here is I've got a source property. So now that I've connected to that file geodatabase, I can go ahead and map sump depth. I can map part height. Under gravity sewers, inner pipe diameter, I can say, hey, that's inside diameter. That's the attribute that I want to make sure I assign to the pipe diameter. Start invert. There's start invert. End invert. There's end invert. So I'm mapping the schema of the file geodatabase over to the properties of the Civil 3D object. If I don't have any information, I can type in some defaults, like 8-inch circular pipe. I could type in any kind of default I want in here, and source units and value mapping. So I can pick from different objects on this side here. Concrete pipe. So now everything's going to be concrete pipe, family name. The structures are going to come in. If I don't do anything, they're going to be 48-inch cylindrical. I don't know if I have a height attribute or not for those. Nope, I got a name, rim elevation. And then when you hit OK or apply, it's going to go ahead and bring that network in and create a civil pipe network. And then you're going to get your error table here that says it was assigned a default value because the structure property name could not be found. So if I look in here, there is a network, a pipe network within. Let me turn off my my geolocation. So you can see what's going on there in the background. But you can see it has added a Civil 3D pipe network to my drawing here based upon that GIS data. The same thing if I had a pipe network in here. So here I've got that same pipe network and I've added a storm network in here. I can come here and I want to create GIS data out of my civil objects. I can come here to output and I can say, hey, publish this to ArcGIS instead. All right. And it's going to make me, I'm going to connect, I'm signed in. I will only want the pipe networks, and I only want the storm network. So I'm going to create a storm network data store on ArcGIS Online based upon my civil drawing. I'll say OK. It's already picked my area of interest based upon my drawing. So my drawing has to have a coordinate system assigned to it. We'll go next. The layer definition, pipes are going to come from, are going to be a line object, and structurals would be a point object. And I can give it a name. I can call this, instead of pipe, I can call it a storm pipe. Instead of structure, I can call this a storm structure. So that would be the layer names within that, the feature class names within that that file geodatabase. It's on ArcGIS Online. Then I can give it a name. You notice this little icon here. You can't have spaces. You got to use underscores. That's an oldie trick here. So I'll say civil underscore project underscore storm network. Okay. Summary civil storm network in Southwest Dallas. Tags, I can say Autodesk. They're going to be storm, layers, sewer, and I can type in my own ones in here, demo or whatever I want. So I can type in some tag data in here. And when I say next, it's going to ask me if I want to publish it to a particular folder or just my content, and I'll go ahead and hit publish. And now it's going to create a new ArcGIS Online file geodatabase that then I can download and bring into ArcMap Pro or Arc Desktop or wherever I need to take it, to migrate it to my database tools. Okay. Another question: can ArcGIS Online create the smart data backwards to Civil 3D? Smart. I don't know what you mean by smart data. If you can expand on that, I'll try to answer that. I'm not going to create smart data backwards to Civil 3D. Yeah, expand on that question a little bit. I'm not quite following what you're asking there. Okay, so I got Civil Project Storm Network is published to ArcGIS. I could have clicked the button there that says View in ArcGIS Online, but I'll just come here to rim invert draw pipe network. It should be able to, if those features were available in the data layer, yeah, you can map. You should be able to map those across. Whatever you have that, if you have if you're talking like dips and then converting those to pipe networks and elevations, no, it would have to be an exact rim invert, exact pipe invert start, and I can't do measure downs or convert items like that. But if your feature class had those attributes of rim invert and all those items, those would come across into the pipe network. Whether you can create the data, I mean, you just got to create the attributes for it. Let me go back to my content. I don't know if that answered your question or not. So there is let's see, where did I add it? So if I go to all my content, so there's my civil storm network that I just made. And again, I can look at it in the online map. And you'll see those pipe networks. It's got to go to, there we go. Choose an attribute to show, part size ID. There we go. Okay. So there, now we've added that data. So you can see the storm network has come in there into my ArcGIS, I guess I could change colors and stuff like that. But there's all the attribute data. So that any of the attribute data that was associated with that storm network, there's the diameter, outside diameter, length, slope. These are all the standard Civil 3D properties that have been converted over into attributes for this feature class. So that's one way you can get it back. Okay, last little bit here. I'm going to show you Autodesk Infraworks. Some of the stuff, if anybody's using Infraworks, I really, highly recommend getting involved and using Infraworks for your preliminary design, even just planning stuff. It's one of my favorite tools. And if you're just doing preliminary planning and design, don't forget that any of the design work that you do in Infraworks, you open up directly into Civil 3D. Surfaces, roads, if you do design roads in Infraworks, it comes into Civil 3D as a corridor model right off the bat. If you do pipe design, preliminary pipe network, storm layouts, you can do like a road, center line, create a road model in Infraworks, add drainage to it, add culverts to it. Those come right into Civil 3D as pipe networks, as corridor models, as surfaces, as proposed surfaces. So you could do your final design, do your preliminary layout, and you're bound by real design rules within Infraworks. AASHTO Green Book design for roads. You can design watersheds. You can do all sorts of traffic. The traffic analysis in here is fantastic. You can get your turning movements in the intersections. I should do a webinar on that one day on traffic analysis in Infraworks. You could watch the cars stack up on an intersection, see where you have problems, and then try different solutions like roundabouts and things, and then drop that in Civil 3D for your final design. So Infraworks is just this amazing tool for pulling this information together. And now that you have access to the ArcGIS Online data, that just gives you that much more power to pull in real world data into your design. So if I'm doing a planning on this, let's say I'm doing some planning on here and I want to see hey, I got a creek that runs down the middle here. I'm going to go out there and grab some public data. So I'm going to go ahead and click my ArcGIS Online and for Infraworks, and it's going to pull in. And notice for the Infraworks one, it just automatically zooms into the extent of your model. So I'm up here in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Here's Lake Winnebago right to the north there. And I'm going to go here. I'm in the public mode. And public, I happen to know that the Wisconsin DNR publishes a lot of good public data out there. And there's my hydro, there's my flow lines, there's hey, you know what else they publish in there? DNR watershed. Let's see what we can find on there. DNR watersheds. Actually, let's just go watershed. Maybe I gotta have Wisconsin. So you gotta kind of play with some of these. Wisconsin watershed. There we go. So here's a feature layer. I know I can look at this feature layer. I know, and again, if you want, you can come back in here into your ArcGIS Online account. You can search for data here. I can say, hey, Wisconsin watershed in the Living Atlas, and it will go out and find that. So I was still in my area. Let's go back to content, home, content, Living Atlas. Click the Living Atlas first. Now you can search Living Atlas. Wisconsin watershed data. Let's see, I wanted to find that. Hey, look, it's watershed boundaries by the federal user community or by Esri base maps. And I can find that stuff. Or maybe I can say, hey, DNR. Oops, not DR, DNR. Or I can look at the stuff that the Wisconsin DNR puts out. DNR. Oh, I guess I got too many items on here. But you can search by location, United States, United Kingdom, go by state, etc., and find that area. And find whatever data that you need. Oh, there's the DNR stuff. So going back to Infraworks, you could find it on there first, find out what the layer name is, come back here to Infraworks, type it in here and find what you need to. So I'm going to bring in this watershed layer. I've selected it, and I'm going to bring it in. I can bring it in as any of these Infraworks objects, buildings, coverage areas, right-of-way studies, watersheds. Hey, let's bring it in as a watershed. See what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and add to my design project. So now it's going to connect to the ArcGIS Online data. It's going to read that watershed data and then bring it into, hopefully, knock on wood, bring that into my Infraworks model. Now, depending on network traffic, sometimes in the amount of data, and I'll realize that I'm searching the entire state of Wisconsin, so it's subdividing that out and bringing the stuff in here. So you notice it's now redrawing my layers in. Remember I had that creek that ran up the middle there? If you look here, now I have a watershed area. You notice I have two watersheds, one on each side of that creek. So that creek acted as the dividing line for my watershed data. So this is now a Civil 3D, or sorry, an Infraworks watershed. If you're familiar with watersheds in here, I can go ahead and I can add rainfall data to this and use this as part of bridge and culvert design for flooding. So just like that, I was able to go out to the ArcGIS. I didn't have this data, but it was publicly available data that I can bring in. I'll show you some examples of some other data in here. I have another data source that I use. We're using this as a planning map instead. So now in here I have a zoning and land use map. This was all publicly available too. So I can look at this data here. We'll switch over to the nice conceptual view, and you can see the land use as coverage areas. And I can come in, hey, what's this green area here? I can select that. I can look at my properties. I can say, okay, this was zoning. This is city zone R3. So I can say, okay, that's an R3 map. I can further colorize this using any kind of style rules I want to, and make maybe my different residential zones different shades of green if I want to get into that. Hey, what's this that red area here? That's zoning M1. Blue, that should be commercial, right? Yep, C2. So there's C2 zoning, there's C1 zoning here. So you can see that's another thing that you can do with it. So I can bring in both design elements like the watersheds or coverage areas for planning purposes. And then once they're done here, I have two options from Infraworks. I can either open this up in Civil 3D and bring those surface data and items in, or actually, because Infraworks is a SQLite file, back when we started there in Map 3D, I can connect to this map in Map 3D. I can make a FDL connection to the SQLite file and bring all this layer data in and make any kind of maps that I want to in there as well. The one thing that is nice in Infraworks, and I got one more proposal here that I've gone to. I brought in some fiber optic data into my drawing from, so I have a layer back here. Let me go back to my content. I have some existing fiber optic in here someplace. Fond du Lac data up there. So I have some existing fiber optic lines. Again, just like I did in Civil 3D, I'll change here to an engineering view, which lets me look at underground work. I have some underground fiber optic lines, so if I select that, you can see this is on the Fond du Lac existing fiber. If I wanted to, I can select that layer. Let's say I wanted to change. Hey, I know it comes north here and it crosses this road, and where else does it go? I'll make an edit to something here. Okay. I know it doesn't stop there. I know it continues on instead. So I can grab this map maybe and pull that north and extend that out as far as I wanted to, or maybe I can right click and say add vertex, and I can pull this off this way or do something goofy like that. So I've made changes to that item in Infraworks. I could then come back to that source here, and then I can right click, and then I can say save back. And just like I did in Civil 3D, it's now going to save those changes back to my data source in ArcGIS Online. It runs a little bit faster in Civil 3D, so you should be able to refresh this page, and you should see that data source is should be towards the back of the top. Yep, there's my existing fiber optic line. Oh, I guess it didn't change that layer. Well, oh, you know what? Same thing as anything else. I got to be able to set permissions on there. So if I didn't have, yeah, I had editing permissions on there. Let's go back to my map. Make sure it didn't do that. Utilities, web map, all my contents. Let's go back to Infraworks, double check that. Right click, save back. There are no feature modifications. So yeah, it did it. It's just for some reason I'm not seeing it here. I know it's supposed to. Maybe that wasn't the layer that I had to change. Fiber optic. Let's take a look at that in the open map viewer. Oh, I chose that base map again. I'm going to make a save there. Save that map. I'll save it later. Let's see, where is that? Oh, there it is. Yeah, oh, there it is. It did do it. Look at that. There's that funky kink that I put in it. Right, oops. Right there. It just didn't change the date, so that was interesting. So I learned something new there too. But if you can't see it there I highlighted it. That same kink that I put in here in Infraworks, sometimes you gotta grab this from the bottom. So there's that angle I put there in the Infraworks model across that parking lot. It did make that save back here in ArcGIS Online, so that did good. Yeah, I knew it did that. Okay, and that's pretty much I have for you. So we have the three products: Map 3D, Civil 3D, Autodesk Infraworks. They all can make connections to ArcGIS Online data to make those changes, to make that data available to you for your design. And then once you're done with the design, you can use this to write that data back to your file geodatabase and stuff. There are a couple caveats here. The process does not work with pressure networks parts at this time. So most of Civil 3D objects are covered: surfaces, alignments, gravity sewer networks, parcel data. But at this time, pressure network parts. So if you're dealing with water main GIS data, bring it in as feature line. You can at least bring it in as feature line data, which is kind of, use that as a universal line. Bring it as a feature line, make any kind of changes you want, convert it to a polyline if you want to, and then convert it back to a feature line. You can write that data back out. So at least you can have the line work and then convert it to pressure network parts if you want to from that point. So that's the one downside that I have right now. Other than that, I really haven't had a problem for the most part. Again, if you don't have a paid subscription for ArcGIS Online, you'll be limited to the data that you can publish, but the living atlas is always there. So if there's publicly available data, you can make a free Esri account. You can go to that living atlas data and certainly use that data in your design, at least on a one-way trip. Austin, you're very welcome. Thank you for asking the good questions. That was good to have. Thank you, everybody. One last slide here for you, and I'll let you go. Please, 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 and I plug this every time. If you haven't done it yet, please visit our blog at www.seiler-ds.com/blog. I've broken some of these out into little 4 or 5 minute videos already. I still got a couple more to go. This whole webinar will be available on there, but we also publish other Autodesk news and information and non-Autodesk. You know, we are a Seiler DS is also now all of our drones and LiDAR drone data are sold through Seiler DS now and supported. Some point cloud data, GeoSync Go, our GeoSlam product line of handheld scanners and backpack. We got our new GeoSlam Discovery that was just released. That's this awesome backpack scanner. We have a YouTube page, Austin, yes. As a matter of fact, if you come to our blog, let me go to my blog. So if we go to our blog, there we go. So here's our blog page. Come to our blog, and then if you're in here, all our videos are published on YouTube. You can always come to the YouTube page. So we have a Seiler Solutions is the name of the YouTube channel. We have both geospatial and design solutions separated out into playlists. We try to put any kind of videos way up there. So yeah, please come subscribe. I'm not going to say, smash the subscribe or smash the bell or whatever it is they say. But we do have some good information, and we also don't forget Revit. So we have a lot of Revit. We kind of cycle back and forth between civil and Revit data. Subscribe. It's some good information. We won't blast you with a lot of useless stuff. We publish like 1 or 2 articles a week. You read it if you want or don't. But there's some good information and updates and any kind of news. So please do that. Or if you have any other questions, you can always email us directly at actually, that's the wrong email. I got to change it. It's cadtechnical@seiler-ds.com. So I thank you very much for taking time out of your lunchtime to watch this video and listen to me ramble on. I appreciate it. Again, this webinar has been recorded. You'll get a recording link to it when it's all up and done in the next day or two. Take a good weekend. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. Stay warm. It's starting to get cold out and rainy and yucky. Stay safe, and I hope you come back next month for our next webinar. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.